But when I interviewed with them, half of the interview was them just telling me how awful the freelancers out there have been, particularly the freelance video editors that they were trying to hire. So guys, I don't know what you're doing out there, but we need to pick it up. I've been ragging on Upwork a lot lately, and for good reason. Upwork has raised their prices. Upwork is full of scams. There's a lot of reason to be avoiding Upwork nowadays and to be looking elsewhere. But there are still people having success on Upwork. And so Upwork is not totally dead. As someone who isn't on Upwork too much anymore, I'm pretty established, I want to know what the heck's going on and why are people still having success on Upwork and what are they doing? And how can we learn from these freelancers and replicate it in our own freelance business? So let's dive into this. I found a Reddit thread, I feel like a lot of my videos are starting that way, that dives a little bit deeper into this. It is specifically a thread of someone who's having a pretty good time on Upwork. They were skeptical of the platform, but they have found success on there. They're wondering if anybody else does too. And from there, this thread actually has some pretty juicy nuggets in it of information and knowledge that we can learn from of how to operate on Upwork and how to think of Upwork when it comes to our freelance career. So I want to look at some of these insights, and then later we'll go into how we can use these tips to our advantage when it comes to getting jobs on Upwork. Savant Copy noted that Upwork has been great for me. They treated it like a process to find a long-term regular client for their roster, and that's all they really use it for. They say it's just an easier way to pitch to new people and hopefully upsell from there. Really great platform once you get those initial reviews and social proof. And I do agree with that. And that's actually how I ended up using Upwork when I first went on, mainly because I wanted the security of having a longer term client, even if that meant getting paid a little bit less. Some of these clients that I've gotten from the very beginning of my time on Upwork are still with me today and have turned into pretty stable income for myself. I was personally afraid of doing too many like one-time gigs because of the whole process needing to start over again with applying and interviewing and all that stuff. So if you look at it from the eye of this user, it's a great way to look at Upwork. Similarly, this user notes, try to build relationships with your clients, especially if they are a bigger company. I took a 150 random job from a client years ago, and since then have been working with him on some huge brands. So same situation. Take a job for a small amount of money and it ends up leading to a really long-term sustainable career. You don't always find those jobs on Upwork. They can be hard to find. But if you're willing to take your time and look at the jobs and read through the job descriptions, you can kind of get a sense of what clients are worth responding to and applying to and what are just trying to like get a job done real quick and then throw you out the door. This user, 𝗾𝗎 has some pretty specific advice. They say 80% of success on Upwork is meeting your deadlines, being responsive, and always keeping your clients in the loop and informed. Doing what you've said you were doing and being easy to work with. Sounds simple, but these are the things that many freelancers forget. Had many clients thanking me over and over for simply meeting my deadlines because many others apparently never did. And it's so funny that I'm reading this because I have experienced a similar thing. I interviewed with a client. I didn't end up taking them on, but when I interviewed with them, half of the interview was them just telling me how awful the freelancers out there have been, particularly the freelance video editors that they were trying to hire. So guys, I don't know what you're doing out there, but we need to pick it up. They were complaining about all sorts of soft skill things like meeting your deadlines on time, time management, communication, reliability. These are all things that I say this, I preach this to the choir. I think a lot of people don't think that that matters when it comes to getting jobs, but those are the people who are getting jobs, are the people that have these soft skills. And we're seeing it in this thread, which is really interesting to see. My mindset in the early stages was not, I should get at least one offer if I submit X number of proposals. It was, did I use up all of my proposals for the day? Like others mentioned, it starts off rough. However, once you get the ball rolling, it becomes a breeze, at least in my experience. And I'll admit, I'm not an A-tier copywriter. The one-off projects will be great, but it's really the clients with ongoing work for you that really snowball your success. Keep those clients a priority. When you finish a project, see if they have more work for you. That's what I did for every one-off project. 3 out of my 10 clients became ongoing. This particular insight really reminds me of the concept of doing good, honest work versus trying to become the next Mr. Beast editor. for example. Everybody wants to be highly recognized and become a superstar for their work. The thing is, and this is something that I learned when I was in the process of getting video editing jobs, there's so much more out there than just these high bar, unattainable gigs that you may get lucky enough to jump into right at the beginning of your career. Nobody knows the companies that I work for as a video editor unless you're going on my LinkedIn, which is fine, but it doesn't always have to be this grand superstar thing. There's something to be said for just doing good work and having a handful of clients and being able to bring in a good amount of income for yourself and then going home or leaving your office at the end of the day and going on with your life, and that just sustaining you in a really nice, honest way. And I think everybody to some extent is looking for that, even if a little part of them is also looking for this amazing, humongous job opportunity that's going to make them a ton of money. Kind of unrealistic. What this Reddit user just wrote is really enlightening to me in that that's kind of the mentality that I like to embody, of just do good work for a few good clients, and then if it works out, then you've been with them for 10 years. Suddenly that goes by and you've been working for them and you're making good money and everything is great. I think that's all any of us can really ask for as freelancers when it really comes down to it. If we haven't met yet, my name is Colleen. In this channel, I help people get video editing jobs and I help people get paid doing what they love. More than likely, that is freelance. And that's what I like to talk about in this channel, video editing and freelance. If that sounds good to you, and if you like that kind of thing, then I would so appreciate it if you can hit the subscribe button, and the like button would also be great, so this video can spread to more people. Let's shift gears now. We saw this little posting, that's all nice and dandy. We saw what's working for people who are on Upwork. What does that mean for the rest of us? What does that mean for the people who are struggling on Upwork or who haven't even tried Upwork yet, but they're kind of afraid to because it seems like kind of a shady place to find a job? Here are a few tips that will at least base level create a foundation for you to know what to look for when you are looking for jobs on Upwork. First, let's talk about quality postings. More than likely, if the person who wrote the job description for said job barely put any time into that job description, they may also not be that interested in giving you much care or effort or more description once you end up talking to them. They may not put any effort into making your job experience with them anything more than just bare minimum, if that. So definitely look for postings that have clear outlines of the work entailed. And it sounds like they were written by a real person. And it sounds like someone who actually cares about the job and cares about the position and cares about the company. This was something I took very seriously. And as I've noted in previous videos, I would only apply to these types of jobs that had great, lengthy, thorough job descriptions that gave me something that I could cling on to and use in my cover letter and in my proposal when I was applying to that job. If they gave me nothing in the description, I'm not going to give them anything because that's a waste of my connects and it's a waste of my time because at worst it's a scam and at best it's somebody who is posting this job and they don't really know what they're looking for and they don't really know how to communicate what they're looking for, and that doesn't scream to me this is a great person to work for. And let's note that there are a significant amount of scams on Upwork and people are getting much, much better at hiding those scams. So definitely check out this video if you haven't already for my Upwork red flags video. That has all of my full tips of everything that you should look out for if you are trying to avoid getting scammed on Upwork. Definitely check that out. But in general, it's just important to keep your wits about you when you are applying to jobs. If it seems too good to be true, it might be. If it seems like a scam, it might be. Put effort and care and thought into every job that you apply to, and you're going to be a little less likely to be involved in one of those scams. Okay, now I want to talk about the engaged client versus the lackluster client, if you will. Even if the job description looks great and you applied and they reached out to you and they want to continue talking to you on Messenger about the job, be aware of of how they are engaging with you. If you're communicating with them via Upwork Messenger, for example, and they seem to be not communicating very well, they are providing not as many details as you were hoping for, they're not answering your questions, they're taking way too long to answer your questions or provide more information, it's important to not let the excitement of the job overshadow these potential red flags. And not to say that they would be super red flags. I had a client in the past that wasn't the best communicator, and I ended up taking the job and I made some money off of our relationship, and that was great. And I did some good work for her, but she was never really that great of a communicator, and she would kind of ghost for months on end and then come back and suddenly have a project that needed done. And that was not great. I mean, it was okay. It doesn't mean that she was scamming me or anything, but it wasn't the greatest client relationship. And I inevitably ended up getting rid of her at one point. That could have potentially been avoided. I could have ended up not taking her on as a client and then ended up potentially with a better client if I wouldn't have taken this more lackluster client to begin with. So again, like, it's kind of tough because you normally are pretty excited that you just finally got to talk to somebody on Upwork and you aren't getting ghosted or rejected all the time. But again, don't let that inhibit your red flag sensors to just see, is this foreshadowing for how this relationship is going to go? And now I want to talk about the biggest red flag that usually ends up causing the most problems on Upwork with people. And that's when it comes to payment. There are plenty of payment red flags. And again, I would check out my video on red flags if you haven't already, because I go into much more lengthy discussion of those payment red flags. However, if they want to take the job off of Upwork, that's a no-go. If they want to pay you outside of Upwork, that's a no, sir. If they have an unverified payment method, that is a questionable beige flag and something worth looking into before you sign on with them officially, but it doesn't immediately indicate a red flag, but it's definitely worth looking out for. Also, if they haven't worked out the money details with you before the project starts, say they want to just dive right into the project and they don't want to discuss any of the actual Upwork logistics, like how are we doing this? Are we doing it hourly? Are we doing it project-based, milestone-based? How are we doing this? Like, what works for you? What works for them? What works for everybody? I always took hourly payments on Upwork, but I've also never been scammed before. And I have heard that you have a higher potential of getting scammed or screwed in some way if you do hourly rather than if you do milestone payments. So definitely look into that for yourself, see what works for you best, and make strong decisions that support your business. Remember to research, remember to do your due diligence, remember to trust your instincts in these situations. Upwork is like a jungle, and you can find some really great diamonds in that jungle. There's still some really great clients out there that are utilizing Upwork to find help, but you just have to be careful and take these precautions to make sure that you are finding the right jobs and you are avoiding any red flag or just uncomfortable situations. Do you have any of your own Upwork tips? I would love to hear them. Please leave them in the comments below, or if you have any of your own Upwork success stories or horror stories, I would love to hear those as well. So definitely put them in the comments below. Also, if you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe and please like this video so it can spread to more people. Thank you to my team. Again, I am Colleen and I will catch you guys in the next video. Have the best one.